There's Mountain Dew, Red Bull, Monster Energy, 5 Hour Energy.
That's all free?
No. Oh, you're not doing sales. Everybody starts out in verification.
Verification, that sounds interesting.
It's not.
Hi, and welcome to Kelly, where we talk about life, your life and my life. And through Kelly, we hope to inspire. I have Patrick Roper on the show today. He is an actor. You're on a show called Florida Girls. So we're going to talk about Florida Girls. We're going to talk about your journey in acting. We're going to talk about your page geared towards acting that you run that people can check out to find out good information about the business and what it takes to be an actor. Yeah. So I loved your clips of Florida Girl, and we're going to talk about your character Ken, who has all the local. He works like 50 jobs.
Yep.
And so he's showing up in different scenes, working different jobs, but with the same personality.
Yep. He's kind of the odd, downbeat, monotone guy who's kind of depressed in every job that he has, and just always talks in that sort of monotone tone. And it was a great experience because I auditioned for that, and originally it was just supposed to be a 1-episode part, and the first episode I appear in is I think it's episode 2, and I'm like the manager of a telemarketing firm, and the main character, played by Laura Chin, she's got a job there, and she's trying to save up for her GED, and she's eager and happy to be there, and trying to be, great, and I'm this guy walking her through this whole facility, and like, yeah, this job isn't fun.
Yeah, you're just not a motivator.
No.
And then you like break these poor little people's hearts because they're so motivated to do their job.
I take her into this little back room, and there's like this small girl on the telemarketing line, and she's actually kind of an animal of a telemarketer and not very nice to the main character either. So it's just very crestfalling for her. But I auditioned for that one part. It was only supposed to be a one episode part, and just about, like, they just started production, and a friend of mine who was working behind the scenes called me up and said, do you realize that they made you a recurring character, right? And I'm like, no, nobody told me that. So she's like, yeah, they liked your audition so much that they decided to write you into the rest of the show. So when I got to, they sent me some scripts, and I started getting kind of an idea of what they wanted to do. It's like, oh, this guy's got all the jobs in town, so he's just going to pop up every here and there. And I got to the set on my first night and met Laura Chin finally in person, and she's in a lot of ways, she's a lot like the character. She's very, bubbly and very upbeat. And I think I had gotten into like a van, and they were going to transfer me somewhere, and she got in with me, and she's just like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you, and you were so incredible on the tape we saw, and we just knew we had to write you into the rest of the show. I'm like, thank you.
Well, it really carries that Abbott and Costello kind of feel to if you have somebody with a really high energy, and then you come in with that, life is doom.
Yeah.
It just adds that wonderful comedy. When you auditioned for that part, did it tell you that the character was like that, or did you decide
it
to?
It did. It actually mentioned that he was just sort of a middle-aged, depressed guy, and I read the lines and I thought, oh, this there's a delivery for this. It's got to be like Ben Stein. It's just got to be that sort of downbeat.
Yeah. And I don't even imagine you really depressed. You're just bored. You're just like, this is my life, really? Now this is y'all's life.
Yeah. And she apparently they decided they were rewriting that show kind of as they were going. They were always tinkering with it, and I'm sure what dawned on them was like, we need a character that speaks to the fact that a lot of people in these tiny little towns have got like 20 jobs.
Yeah.
So they I guess since they like my performance, they just figured, why don't we give all the jobs to Ken?
Right,
And
right.
so eventually I show up as a bartender, and then, irony of ironies, the main character's been working to get her GED, and I show up as her GED teacher. So, yeah, I mean, I have a couple of episodes where there's a beautiful episode where the first time you see me as the GED teacher, I'm like reading out of the book, and I'm just reading like verbs. And it's the most monotone Ben Stein kind of put you to sleep moment, and she literally falls asleep.
Well, I can relate to that character. When I first opened my acting studio, that's the way I was. I was working like 10 jobs, and I was out in the community like all the time, because it's the only way I could market. I didn't have a lot of money to put into advertising, so I was just out in the community. Anybody that would let me show up and talk about acting, I was there showing up. So I am Ken with a little higher energy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your journey. Since this show is about education, your journey as an actor, you had a long period where you were pursuing the career, and then you grew up.
Yeah, I took a break for a while.
And then you decided to go back to childhood. Which one do you like better?
Childhood's always better.
Yes.
I started out, I wanted to be an actor since I was 5. And my parents thankfully, they didn't look at that as a horrible concept. They were actually pretty supportive, which I think is really an important thing to have. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like if your family and friends didn't support this, because you need that in this career so much. But they weren't necessarily active, and they didn't like push me towards it. They just kind of let me naturally figure it out.
Yeah. Do you think they really thought that you would ever do it as a career?
I suppose there's probably that, like, he's a kid, he'll figure out whatever he wants to do. I mean, when my mother first asked me that, I was pointing to the TV screen. I want to do that. She probably thought, I guess he wants to be a fireman or something. I don't know. It's like, no. Like every week, I'd be looking at a show, and I want to do what these are adults, and they're playing.
Right.
Like they get to do 100 jobs. That's cool. Much like Ken. It's like they get to do 100 jobs.
That's true.
So it's like, I want to be that. I want to make money doing that. I had a weird sense even as a child. It's like, I can make money as an adult by playing like I do as a child.
Now, when you got back into it, what was the difference in the industry? Because then when you were, we've changed a lot in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And especially with video auditioning, and I think we have more opportunities probably than ever before, where really the average person can at least have the opportunity to do this.
I mean, it hardly matters where you live. Obviously, it helps if you're in a bigger...
You still have to travel if...
Yeah.
I mean, if you book the role and they want you as a local hire, you're still...
It helps if you're in a slightly larger metropolis that has actually got an active film community going.
Right.
But... so it's not like you can be out in, the middle of nowhere, and you can, but it's harder.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I trained in acting when I was a teenager up through my 20s, and I was an actor in Seattle for a while. I started a theater company. I was making independent films, and this was back when everything was still, 16 millimeter, and I'm splicing films. And we did not have all this digital stuff. And, I would have loved that as a kid. But then I had to eat. I had to keep a roof over my head, and, responsibility kind of showed up. And I wasn't making as much of a living as I could have, so I had to do other things. And I started some other businesses.
And now you're in Savannah. What is the scene like in Savannah? Do you still have to come to Atlanta for a lot?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not far away, so it's not...
I mean, there's so much going on in Savannah for the most part.
Right.
That I have actually been mostly busy there. I've certainly done some stuff up here and auditioned a bit up here, and I auditioned for lots of projects, that take place in Atlanta and throughout the Southeast. But yeah, when I got back into it as an adult, I moved here out of just a quirk, just wanting to change of pace in life, and thought, I might as well go back into acting again, because that's what I know how to do. And I started training again, because I realized, a lot of time had passed, and I needed to refresh my brain in terms of what.
Let's talk about training for like 2 seconds.
Sure.
How has, you spent many years in the arena, I call it, and then, come out and back into training. How has that helped you as an actor? I like people to understand that because, a lot of people have the mindset, well, if you're an actor, you're just born with this talent and you should just be able to do it, and it really doesn't always normally work that
there's
way.
aspects of that certainly exist. I mean, occasionally you come up with people that have great natural talent, but by and large, without training, I mean, you see a lot of actors that get lucky, like they end up in some independent film, and the film miraculously makes a big splash, and
But
suddenly they're
I
out
like
there.
to even say, if that is, you can get training through being in films and things like that, but normally you're still with more experienced actors who are giving you feedback. So there still is a level of training that's happening.
Yeah,
even if you get it through theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're still with seasoned actors that are giving back to you.
I mean, I started in theater, and there's always a little bit of disagreement on how they translate between theater and
They're
film
just
into
different,
each other.
yeah.
They're a little different, but I have learned the aspects of classical theater training
Right.
that apply to film. So I ended up being fairly natural at the flow of how to transfer that.
Right. I would much, as an acting coach, I would much rather have somebody with some, I mean, if we're talking about somebody who's really green and never been in training, I'd much rather have somebody with some theater, or a lot of theater, because I can pull them into the place that I need to pull them.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when I first kind of made the transition from theater to film, people were saying that you couldn't do it. You can totally do it.
No, you can totally
Acting
do
is
it.
acting. So let's talk. This is for you to tell you that you're a gift in life. Let's talk about the acting page, and you kind of gave me the history that you took over this this page. It's a closed group, right? You have to ask to join it.
Yeah.
And you started sharing your journey and thought it would be beneficial to people, and then it just became kind of a learning.
Yeah, so it's the Savannah, Georgia Actors Group, and as I was getting back into this whole thing as a middle-aged guy rediscovering the whole thing, I realized, there's a lot of opportunities for me to be able to, since I was out learning stuff both online and out doing it, I just learned that there were a lot of opportunities that would be beneficial to other people. So I just started posting stuff.
Right.
And sometimes it's it's anything from very practical to completely theoretical acting stuff. So you get a huge variety. And then we also do inspirational stuff, and then there's other stuff that doesn't seem like it's about acting, but I usually explain to people it's like life
Is about
you
it's
need
the
to have
same.
a life.
Yeah.
And-
You're in acting, you're emulating life.
Yeah.
So I find that the majority of my studio, you can ask my students, it's about life lessons and constantly giving life lessons that go along with, because in stories, that's where we're getting is lessons.
Yeah.
The good stories are going to teach a lesson. It's going to make you really think about something and make you think about your life and your environment. And
I always say the more interesting a human being you are as a person, the more interesting you will be to watch as an actor.
yes.
So I mean, you'll be infinitely castable if you go out and you learn things and
You
have
got that
adventures
interesting thing. As the most dull person in the world, playing the most dull person, you were the most interesting to watch. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So if you can give some advice to a new actor, what would be something that you've learned that you can pass on?
I certainly have tons of it, and of course you can go to the page and find all sorts of things. But one big thing that I don't hear from a lot of people that I like to tell people is you're going to be out there and you're going to be learning a lot of things from a lot of people, a lot of variety, and some of them are very knowledgeable, some of them are not. You're going to hear a lot of opinions. You have to. I think people get too caught up in the sort of mind candy of conflicting thoughts on how to do things, and they
It ends up a lot like religion, right?
yeah, they fail to kind of take a deep breath and realize, oh, this is just this person's opinion
Right.
about how to do something as opposed to a fact.
Right.
And I think new actors have this tendency, they don't want to do something wrong, so they get all bunged up and feeling like, oh, I don't want to step on toes and I don't want to offend this person and that. But if you go at it that way, you're going to be just this fearful little knot of a human being. You
Right.
have to open up and realize you're just dealing with opinions.
Yeah.
Like, take what works for you and discard the rest.
Yeah, you're just seeing what tools work for you. And I think I tell actors to begin with, because I end up with a lot of green actors because the industry is still really young here, so you still got a lot of people trying it out. But I tell actors in the beginning, they come in scared, not all of them, but the ones that do. And I'm like, look, right now, you're going to hold my hand. And I'm going to put the trust in you that you don't have in yourself. But eventually, you're going to break from that, and you're going to be able to trust yourself. And I think the goal is to start moving as an artist. We start off like this, learning a foundation, but then you learn to move in and out of it. You learn to break the rules. You learn to be, you learn what is, and you learn how to act.
Yeah. Yeah, you learn what works for you.
Right.
You certainly learn things that are appropriate and aren't appropriate, but.
And there's all kinds. I like to tell people, there really are all kinds of paths.
Yeah.
We think we're locked into one. We have to do this. We don't have to do this. But if you don't, let's say you don't go into training, you're going to have to find that training in a different area instead of in a classroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's all about just doing it. Thank you so much for being here, and tell the audience where they can check out Florida Girls.
You can find Florida Girls on Pop TV. The series actually technically ended last week, but I'm sure Pop TV, I think, still is going to be replaying it. So you can find Pop TV on, I know it's like Xfinity. They also have a web page, so you can stream them. You can find it on iTunes and Vudu and a few other sources. So.
And we'll put a nice clip at the beginning so they can get a feel for your character. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, guys. We hope this segment educated and inspired you.